Is your kitchen in need of some color but you just don't know where to start? In this tutorial, I'll show you how to easily paint your kitchen cabinets and hardware. And yes, you can still paint your door handles without fear of it chipping off after a few months of use. Follow along and I'll show you my secret method. So removing this cabinet hardware is so super simple, more simple than I thought it was gonna be. I thought that you were gonna have to lift up this plate and there were gonna be screws underneath it to unscrew, but watch this. You just flip this up, comes right out. This one's the messy door, don't mind the bottom here. Of course we're painting it, but stick this in the little tab right here, pop it up, comes right off. Watch it again. Give all of your doors a good sanding before painting. I use 220 grit on the orbital sander and a sanding block to make sure to get in all the crevices. Make sure to wipe down all the excess dust before painting. So while we're taking a coffee break here, I'm trying to decide on which color gold I should paint these handles. I have one, I think it's called satin bronze. The other is called, I'm not even gonna try and name these colors again. I'm just gonna look at the bottle. But one's a little bit darker, one's a little bit more yellow. I'm trying to decide which one I wanna paint them. When I was out in the garage, I was thinking more of the yellowish one. Now that I hold it up to this color, I'm thinking more of this bronzy color, the one on the right. The darker one. This darker one matches the chairs that we have over here. Like neither of them are exactly the same. I feel like this one's too yellow compared to that, and I feel like that one matches better. Especially, it always looks different on the video. But in real life, I promise you the one on the right side, this one here, not that one, this one, looks better compared to them. One other thing to consider is that this is the color gold of the light fixtures that I'll be putting up hopefully sometime in the next week or so. I really think that this one just matches better. Also, compared to like kind of these brownish gold tones in the countertop here, you can see like a little bit here, a little bit here. I think this color gold goes a little bit better than this one. What do you think? Comment your choice down below for me because I'd love to hear which one you would choose, but I personally am gonna go with this one. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I'm really trying to get this all done because I don't want to have the cars outside tomorrow if I don't have to. I'm looking at what my proposed setup here is for painting these cabinets. I think it's gonna work. I think it's really gonna work. Let me show you guys. So taping off all these mirrors here. Hi. I have mirrors in my garage because it's also a dance studio. I'm gonna be taping off this whole area here, hanging these doors from the garage door rack right there. I realized shortly after filming this that this isn't the type of job you want to do in a closed garage. You really need a well-ventilated area, so I'm gonna have to paint these with the garage door open. So I started clearing out the garage corner, put the drapes up, and the next step was to build a stand to hold these cabinet doors while I painted them. I randomly found a 2x3 and a 2x4 that are like pretty much exactly the same length in my scrap wood. And I found all these blocks that are pretty much the same. So I'm gonna use these as the feet, these as the stands. Don't have to make any cuts. Basically, just gonna drill a hole to fit a piece of rebar through here and make that the rack that we're going to spray paint these on. I still haven't finished my espresso yet. I did this all during my coffee break. Finished the rack with these scrap pieces of wood. Quick, 10-minute little build there. Basically just took some 12-inch pieces of 2x4 or 2x3 or whatever you have on hand, and then make the stand that is taller than your cabinet. And I finished the espresso. Hanging the doors for painting allows you to paint both sides of the door at the same time. In order to hang the doors from the stand, I'm attaching cup hooks to the underside. These are lower cabinet doors, so the underside will not be visible pretty much ever. If you're painting upper cabinet doors, attach the hooks on the top of the door so you won't see the holes after you remove the cup hooks. For drawer fronts, you can simply fill the holes with putty and use a paintbrush to cover, or spray them laying down instead of hanging, since you don't really need the backside painted. For kitchen cabinets, it's recommended to use a satin finish on your paint so it's durable and easy to wipe down. Flat paints will be easier to scratch off, which is super noticeable with dark colors like I'm using here. Always make sure to wear your protective gear for painting, goggles, and an N95 mask so you're not breathing in the paint. Some paint sprayers will require you to thin the paint before putting it into the sprayer, and others will not. Make sure to fully read the instructions. It's also a good idea to have a test spray area, which is what I used this piece of cardboard for. Each time you start spraying, it's possible to get some splotches at first, so I used the test area to make sure there were no splotches before spraying the doors. Start your pass with the sprayer slightly above the surface you're painting and end just below the surface to make sure the coverage is even throughout. I started by spraying the top and sides of each door, then the middle, before turning it around and spraying the backside. I'd like to take a moment here to thank the sponsor of this video, my dad, who let me borrow his paint sprayer. This is an old Wagner model, the Wagner Wide Shot, and after doing some research, it looks similar to their Flexio line of sprayers. If you've seen my previous videos, you know I had a not so great experience with my first paint sprayer, but this one was definitely easier to use and gave me the look I wanted in way less time. As you're painting, make sure to keep an eye on the amount of paint left in the sprayer. If it gets too low, the paint can become splotchy and you don't want that to happen, especially on the front of one of the doors like what happened here. If you do get some splotches, go over the spot with a dry paint roller to smooth out the excess paint, then go once over with the sprayer again. You can see the texture on these doors looks pretty splotchy when it's wet, but don't worry, this is normal. It's still going to dry nice and smooth and flat, just as you'd expect. So we got 4 cabinet doors hanging there and 1 hanging on this rack to dry. It looks like I did pretty good with keeping all the black paint inside, except for that one little spot up there in the corner. I didn't really get any black paint outside that, so that's pretty good. I guess we'll have the full truth once I take all this down, but this is my memo to myself to not open the garage door, or else these cabinets will be ruined. How's this for a makeup look? Yes? No? Maybe? What do we think? So you can see after the first coat, there's still a few places here that just need a little bit of touch up. So we're gonna go through and do a second coat. I'm loving how even this paint is coming out. I think it looks great. So I think a second coat on here definitely needed just to kind of even things out, but it's gonna go pretty fast. We'll let this dry and then put all the hardware back on. When I painted these doors the day before, I was having a hard time getting the bottom just because this rack was a little bit too short. So when I put the second coat on, what I did was just flip the door over, spray that top edge there, and then flip it back over upside down onto the rack and then finish painting. One of the doors did get a little bit too much paint on the backside and it started dripping as it was drying. So I again just went over this with a dry roller to smooth out that extra paint and then let it dry, and it ended up being nice and smooth. I removed the hooks from the bottom of the doors, put the hinges back in, and adjusted them before painting the rest of the cabinet. Because I didn't label the hinges when I took them off, most of them needed adjusting and it was quite the process. If your cabinets are already in place, make sure to label your hinges as you take them off and put them back in the same spot to avoid having to do tons of adjustments like I did. I taped off the edge of the sink and painted the outer edges of the cabinet. The paint was easily scraped off the inside surface of the cabinet, so I didn't bother taping much. I just scraped it away with a putty knife off camera once it was dry. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know this is my least favorite part of the process, but I've come to terms with the fact that it's just what you have to do, and honestly, I feel like I've gotten much better at it, so it's not as stressful as it used to be. I laid down tape on both sides of this caulking seam to get a clean look and immediately removed it before it was dry. Door handles and drawer pulls that get a lot of use are very prone to chipping if painted. I like to use an automotive primer when painting objects like this to ensure durability. I first cleaned off the surfaces with some rubbing alcohol and placed them on a flat surface to paint. First I sprayed one side, then the other, and then I stood them upright to get the top of the handles. You'll repeat this sequence for each coat that you do with the paint. The primer that I'm using is by Rust-Oleum. This is a self-etching automotive primer. I'll link it in the description box below for you. The color that I'm using here is Rust-Oleum Metallic in Satin Bronze. This is probably my favorite shade of gold. Again, spray both sides, then stand each of the handles upright and spray the tops of them. The final step to seal the paint on these handles is Varathane Triple Thick Polyurethane Spray in a clear matte finish. And that's it, my friends. 1 or 2 days work and you have a brand new look to your kitchen. I hope this has inspired you to transform your space into something you love. As always, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a new DIY tutorial. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.